Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk, Real Solutions. I apologize for being late to the start of this live, but there was some technical issues going on. And I need to fix something because this banner is in, I just noticed it is in the way. So need to I need to fix that. Let me see. Um, how to remove this banner. Um, okay, there we go. So I need to remove that. There we go. Yay! So, okay. So, as I was saying, welcome to Real Talk, Real Solutions. I have a special guest today, and his name is John Gonzalez. And this is going to be a very informative, lively discussion. What great timing, also with school about to start. And definitely, if you have questions, please leave it in the comment section with the letter Q there. And we're just gonna have a good discussion today. And so with no further delay, I want to introduce to you John Gonzalez.
Hi, good
Yay!
morning, Latanya.
Hello. Yes, good morning, almost evening, in the afternoon. So, yay. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to say this. When I knew that I was like, I wanted to have you on, was when we were in the, Create the Economy
Mhm.
class, and when we were all getting to know each other. And when you mentioned about how you was a principal and you worked with that population of students, because I also work with individuals with special needs, more so autism. And I was like, oh wow, I want to have you on to talk about that and dive into that and what's working, just all of that. And I don't know how far we're apart. I'm in Wisconsin, and
Mhm.
you're
We
in
are in, I am in New Jersey.
New
I'm in the
Jersey.
East Coast.
How far is that? I know we're both
Well, you're about halfway across the country.
it's
Country.
about halfway.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty far. Okay. So I'm going to stop talking, and I want you to introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, so absolutely. First of all, Latanya, I'm excited to be here and thank you for having me. I appreciate and I'm honored, by your invitation. Similarly, I think as you shared, both of us being in this field and doing this work with those with disabilities of all ages, right? We are truly doing God's work, right? So we are taking care of those that need great assistance, taking care of themselves. So as you said, I mean, I've been a special educator for over 20 years. I'm located here in New Jersey, and I am currently the principal of a school for children with disabilities, ages 5 to 21. Many that are on the autistic spectrum, may have some behavioral or emotional disabilities, along with other learning or other underlying developmental delays as well. So that's what we do.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You were almost, because one of my first questions is is what you were talking, or what you were sharing. And so I definitely want to dive in, because I have quite a few questions that I would like to ask you and to share with everyone. And so, but I do have a question. Has school started back yet for you all?
Well, that's an interesting question, Latanya. So here in New Jersey, the school year typically begins in September. So it usually begins after Labor Day. However, at my school and schools like ours, and those of us that do serve the special needs community, right now we are in the midst of our summer program. So while there are breaks between the school year and the summer program and so forth, we really consider our program to be 12 month, to be year
Oh,
round.
Oh, so it's year round. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, working with children with disabilities or anyone with disabilities, continuity is important. So any large breaks, breaking up their routine, breaking up their services, they need those services to continue in order to continue to make progress or maintain their capabilities and where they're at.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a school like that here called the Richardson School, and
Mhm.
it's year round. It's year round in the sense that they go the whole school year, but then they have like a program for the summer.
Mhm.
They have like it's one part is ESY. I'm sure you probably have heard of that extended school
Yes,
year.
the
Yeah,
extended school year.
I know we might be saying some terms that other people don't know, and I'll
Mhm.
try to remember to kind of like okay what it means. But ESY, they have that, and then it's like they get a it's like a 2 week break before it starts, and then it's like before school starts, I think they get 2 or 3 weeks. So kind of like a break there.
Mhm.
And then they, like I say, then they have like their summer program. So they try to make it a little less intense, I guess, with the school stuff. But I'm familiar like with what you're saying, but that's one school here that I know of that I have worked with, the Richardson School here in Wisconsin. So it's yeah. So okay,
That's essentially what our program is. Very similar calendar. So we have our 30-day summer program runs for 6 weeks, and on both ends of the summer program, it is about a 2 week span where staff and students are off on either side, outside of the school year from September till June.
right, right, right. Yes. And you're so right. That continuity is so important. And oh, it's a lot I can say that we'll get into. Um, the discussion. Yes, our sister said she cannot and has to do everything for her daughter, and she always told me that she has to stay within a particular. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is true. Yeah. Yes, very
Oh,
true.
Tanya, that statement. I mean, that statement right there. I mean, we could probably have an entire segment on just that.
Oh,
For
and we will. As a matter of fact, since you open it up, we'll have a part two. If you're, I
okay.
know I'm kind of going from the end to the beginning, but I would greatly like to have a another conversation. Um, and and we can definitely talk about that. But yes, you're right. I so I won't. Yeah,
Can I
let's.
just add? Can I just add something for that person though? So for that person who commented and added that, thank you. And I would just, we said we can have a deeper conversation at some other session. But for that person, please, for your friend and your friend's daughter, um, just because she cannot speak doesn't mean that she cannot communicate. So please explore all those
Oh,
modes of communication, whether there's, picture word systems, there's PECs, right? So pictorial, so there's a pictorial mode of communication where, the child or young person can, point to pictures of things. You can label things throughout the building. And then there's augmented communication devices where you can use a tablet like an iPad. There are programs on there. So, please share that with your friend for their daughter and whoever's working with them. Explore that.
absolutely. And to even piggyback off that, I remember I've had therapists say just because a person can't speak, vocally out doesn't mean that they're not hearing and can't understand. People have a they I'm trying to think misnotion or not diagnosis, but basically they think just because they can't speak that they can't, that they're not really hearing, that they
Mhm.
really are not understanding. And that is just not true. So, what I'm going to do, John, um, if you can, I want to go into asking this first question, and then because I actually also have work being done at my house, and I'm getting a call from them, and I need to go and check on that as well as probably I think they're done with the project. what they're doing. So I want to bring you on. And one of the questions I wanted to ask is to share about your background, what led you to become a school principal
Mhm.
for such, the particular school. And yeah, and in a way, what inspired you to work specifically with this demographic of individuals. So I will be right back and thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Latanya. So, yeah, so I'll share with everyone that my journey into education actually took a circuitous route over 20 years ago. When I get actually my first undergraduate degree was in business. Um, as a young person, I didn't really necessarily have too much guidance. I was actually the first of seven siblings to go to college. So, from what I knew, I just figured, all right, let me go to business school. Let me explore a business degree, and I could take that and turn that into something. So I did. I completed my undergraduate degree in business, and I went out and I worked in the business world. I worked in customer service and sales for a couple of years, and then in my early 20s, I got introduced to education actually through a coaching opportunity. So I'd been an athlete throughout my entire life, and through high school and college. So I got an opportunity and an offer to coach baseball at a school in Jersey City, New Jersey, is where I grew up. And I got introduced to the coaching thing, and then one thing led to another, and a number of my former coaches, those that coached me when I was in high school in particular, they were transitioning and entering the education field because at that time, as there is now, there was a shortage of teachers. So with a bachelor's degree, there were alternative routes to get into education. And that's what I did. So I wasn't necessarily tied to what I was doing at the time. So I transitioned into education, and special education was I guess at that time, the fastest route for me to go in. So literally, this all occurred about around August of 2022. And by September of 2022, I was actually in a classroom and co-teaching students. So right into the classroom, just to kind of paint a picture of how dire the need for teachers was at the time. And I was required to go back and enter a teaching program while I was working as a teacher. So that got me into education. I worked towards getting my master's in special education and my teaching degree and certifications. So I always thought that that school administration, being a principal, supervisor, director, supervisor, anything along that administrative level in schools, fit my skill set as a former business person and former business graduate. So I always looked at school administration as a combination using my business experience and expertise, but in a school setting, right? Managing a school and managing the budget and managing a staff and leading and things like that. So that was my direction getting into education. How I got into special education, as I said, it was just it was the fastest way into education and into working and entering the field at the time. However, that was a blessing. That was a true blessing, and I could say that that was God, an example of God's work. And I had found my calling. I didn't realize that until years later. Um, and now, I mean, I truly believe that I am walking in my calling, and this is what I have been meant to do. So getting into special education, I just started. I mean, that was the population and the needs of these students and children, and what they need and what they do just really touched me at a personal and soulful level. So little by little, as I gained that experience and I worked with different populations in the special education field, just touched me more and more. And I've been happy and ecstatic to do it ever since. Then again, God's work. me being a special educator for, at that time, about 7 years. So I started in September of 2002, and in March of 2009, I became a father for the first time. And my son is now 15 years old, but my son is on the autistic spectrum. So not only have I been and become a professional practitioner, I now became a father of one exceptional child myself and responsible for one at home. So I share with folks all the time. I share with families, students, my staff, anyone that I come across in the education field, and even personally, when I do tell my story as I am now, I get to do this work. I get to do this work both professionally and personally as well. So when you're back, Latanya. Let's see what happens. I don't hear you.
Okay, I'm so
There you
sorry. I was having yard work done and they had finished and I needed to pay and they were showing me things. So I so apologize. I apologize to all the audience too. This is but thank you for your patience. Thank you.
No
So
problem.
so I want to go into I know you talked about the background, what is inspired you, and when I go back and look at the video, I'll be able to hear what what you said in regards to that. Can you describe the school environment or specific programs? Like, what does your school, what does it offer to the individuals that are enrolled in your school?
Sure. So we're an alternative program. So basically, when local school districts can no longer accommodate or don't have appropriate programming for these children, they look at our school or schools like ours. Um, and as I said, we can serve the population from ages 5 to 21. By federal law, students with disabilities are eligible for schooling up until age 21, and we consider our program to be a full service institution. So anything that these children come to us and need, we are able to provide. So they're receiving their academic instruction. We're still following the state schooling standards and teaching to their level of ability. They're receiving their math, their reading, their language arts, science, social studies, their physical education and health, specials like music and art. We have a STEM program. And then on top of that, we are also servicing and addressing their exceptional needs, right? So we have a full related services staff, so all therapists. So if they require speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling through a social worker, those are all services that we provide as well. And then we train our staff and we work with on behavioral interventions. Um, so teaching them coping skills, social emotional learning, all of those things. So if there's anything that you can imagine that your child or your young person, your family member with some form of disabilities needs, we look to provide. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything that they may need that we don't already provide. And if we don't, we will figure out a way and what we need to incorporate that as well. I think you muted yourself again, Latanya.
I want to make sure. I was going to ask you, how is the program tailored to meet the specific needs of those with behavioral issues? And so so it seems like what I'm hearing is that it's not a one cookie. It's not a blanket. It's the
Mhm.
individual, just like IEPs. Individualized educational, plans. How it's individualized to the person and what they need, and it can vary from one person to the other. So my question, as a principal, what role do you play? Like, are you sorry, are you a nat? Are you teaching as well? I mean, so what is your role as a principal in that particular type of school and environment?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm the facilitator of all things, right? So, I mean, we have our classrooms, and each of our classrooms has their lead teachers, and they have paraprofessionals and support staff that work on the instructional practice. Alongside me, I do have my supervisor of instruction, who also, works with them very closely on all of the instructional programming. And then we have our entire related services team, all of our therapists. So yeah, so while I'm not, directly delivering any of the instruction or therapeutic services, my role as a school principal is to support everyone and, from all the staff and all the students in having what they need in order to serve the students and deliver our services. Um, we are a small setting as well. We're a small program, so I do I do get to know our students as best as I possibly can. Some of our students I have excellent rapport with most or all of them. I know all of our staff and students by name. Also, Latanya, I love to share is um, I don't consider myself to be very formal, as you see underneath my name on the screen there. I go by Mr. John. That's all I go by. That's what all the staff and students call me. So anyone that comes in and calls me or addresses me by Mr. Gonzalez, I do correct them. Please, no, just John is fine. I'm Mr. John to everyone. But that goes hand in hand with our philosophies and our practice as well. Our children come to us with different stories. As you said, you alluded to their IEPs, and all their programming is truly individualized to what they need, how they learn, what they respond to, and what we may identify our staff as what they may need most. What their weaknesses are, their growth areas are, and we try to develop those and increase their capabilities in different things, not only in learning and academics, but also in their personal skills and their functional skills, their living skills. Our goal is to make every one of them as independent and functional as they possibly can be. Right. So we're always targeting all of those things, and working with every child truly individually. We get to know them very well. We try to connect school and home, again, that continuity piece, so that anything that we are speaking at school, any terms, any language, any strategies, anything that we can recreate at home that we're using in school, and vice versa. A lot of our students and their families are often receiving in-home services. So we always encourage our families as well. We tell them, "Look, if you, with your permission, if you allow us to speak to those service providers as well, connect school and home," because we believe that, again, the more that we could all be speaking the same language, the better and faster that students can progress.
Oh, I really like that. Do you see that when you have that continuity across both environments, that helps, like with the home and with school, as much as possible, and family involvement? Do you see that being very helpful in the success of
Absolutely.
the student?
No, absolutely. I mean, 100%, Latanya. Remember, as I shared earlier when I was telling my story, Latanya, I shared with everyone that I don't only get to do this professionally, I do this personally as well. So I do have a 15-year-old son who's on the spectrum, and he was classified and diagnosed at between 3 and 4 years old. So we've gone through that process, as all of our families have, right? So to your point, a lot of our families, parents, not everyone is a special education practitioner, right? So in addition to working with their children, we get to work with them and educate them as well. Um, so as much as we can build them up and build their skills and build let teach them the language and teach them the strategies and things that they can do, outside of the school day, because we had them for 212 or 213 days throughout the school year, right?
Right.
Most school days it's a 6 hour day. I mean, outside of sleep, a 24 hour day, you still got, if you're lucky getting those 8 hours of sleep, right? And then the 6 hour school day, that's 14 hours. There's still 10 hours every day to
Mhm,
account for, right?
mhm.
Then there's weekends and there's breaks, right? So what can the family do? What can anyone working with the children at home, out in the communities, what can they do to build on what we may be working on in school? So we get to work with the families and educate them as well, and we welcome them in. They can ask, we can recommend them, and if there's ever any time that they want to come into the school, they can meet with our team and those that are working with their children to discuss practice, because we do. I mean, we know connecting school and home is a huge part of student progress.
Absolutely. Is there a roadmap for students, like you mentioned, how in these type of schools, there are students that for whatever reason their needs are not going to be met in the regular setting of the public school system. So and some there's a roadmap to integrate them back into their home schools. Has that been accomplished at your school where you were able to some of the students that did come there for whatever reason they were able to go back to their home schools? And
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Latanya, that's always our goal, right? So our goal is always to, for whatever reason, the students are coming to us. We want to help them develop the skills that they need. That way they can integrate back into their community schools, right? So it always, when we talk about least restrictive environment, right? Least restrictive environment, we always want the children to be back in their neighborhoods, among their communities and populations. I wouldn't call it a roadmap because there's not, again, just as when we're teaching them and every student's IEP, there's not just one way.
right,
Because there's a lot of other factors that go into that. We serve a lot of different school districts, and depending on what each of those school districts can provide, not every school district has the same programming within. So it
right,
really, it depends on other things. So no, there's not an exact roadmap, but we're always striving, and working with the students to give them that capability. And when it's appropriate,
right.
yes, we work with the district and the family to then start transitioning them back.
Okay, okay. Um, Wow, I like that. And thank you for that correction because you're right. No, I was in a meeting once with an IEP meeting, and it was a pretty intense one. But my approach is that we need to come to the table. Let's all come to the table.
Mhm.
Because when you put it off on, oh, you're not doing your job, this, that, or the other, you, you're dealing with humans who ego, a lot of things are there, and it's not an easy job. It's not by any stretch of the means, especially when you're dealing with behaviors and other things and other, it can be really intense. And so I like to take it off of like, okay, you're not this, you're not that, and I'm like, let's come to the table for the student. Let's always remember that this is who we are here for. And also there was a meeting once where this particular for this student, and it was a lot that was said, well, we're doing this for this student and we're doing this, and it's like they're separate from, and I just had to speak up and I said, that's why it's called an IEP, not a group IEP. you know this is what this individual needs to be able to thrive and be successful in their educational journey here. And so what can be incorporated, that's great, but this is a IEP, is individualized, and this is what that person needs. And so that kind of like, okay, everybody, like, and then we just kind of got back to the discussion at hand. So
Mhm.
yeah, wow.
No,
Um,
it's definitely true. I mean, and I've participated and we've participated in enough of those meetings to know the difference. And, truly, not to sound cliche, but, no two individuals are alike. No two meetings are alike. No two stories are alike. There may be some similarities. There may be some students and families that need similar things. But when you really put the whole thing together, they do. They all truly have their own plan.
right, right. I heard somebody say that when you've met, um, and this is kind of more catered, I guess, to autistic, but individual. But if you've met one autistic child, you've only met one,
Hmm.
because it's not the same. It's not the same. And I try not to like, because the person, it's just like if maybe you have a particular issue and you're being known for that. I don't really like that, because the individuals that have, they are, that is not who they are. That is a situation that that has happened to them. And so I don't know. I just the more of working and being in this field, I just might it changes you. There's no way that it definitely changes you. And then when you have a loved one, it makes it even more personable, because
100%.
is
Yes.
it that's a whole nother topic of discussion with that one, that individuals, and it's not for people to like come down on other people who don't understand. They just don't know. They just don't
Mhm.
know. And so, and then some things you won't really know if you're not living it. And what I've learned is that some of the until sometimes certain things touch you personally, you don't really. Very few people will have that drive and compassion when it doesn't hit them. But what I've seen, that when it hits you personally, then it's a whole nother thing. Because I have came across people, all backgrounds of life, of where now that's something that levels people. If you have a special needs situation, I don't care. You can be the president on to whatever. There's going to be that common thing that's there. And yeah, so okay, enough about me. So so how do you train um um Mr. John? how do you how do you train your staff to handle the challenging behaviors? And even keeping up the how is that handled, and or training? I'm sure it's probably ongoing training, the newest techniques, all of that, and keeping the morale up when you are dealing with the intensity of what the behaviors could be from the students.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there's a number of different practices out there, Latanya. We in particular, we practice a training called CPI, Crisis Prevention and Intervention. And as part of the CPI training, we are taught, how to identify a student when they are becoming escalated, and always learning or trying to learn what their signs and signals are, so that you can proactively, intervene and de-escalate, before the behavior boils over. So all of our staff are trained in CPI, um, and those de-escalation strategies, right? So uh, I mean, again, when you use the word roadmap or strategies and so forth, Latanya, I mean, this is not an exact science. So no one, there's no one out there that can pretend and say, hey, I can teach you to do this, and do this every time, and this is what's going to de-escalate any student that is, presenting with any form of behavior. It's just that just doesn't exist. So you're always trying things, right? You're trying things to redirect them, to direct their attention to something else. If there's, figuring out what their triggers are, and if you can figure out those triggers, hopefully, either eliminating those triggers where they don't have access or exposure to those triggers, or better yet, teaching them the coping skills, right, to self-regulate and de-escalate themselves when those triggers are present. So as you said, I mean, that training is ongoing. It's always just repeating itself. We are always coming back to the table to discuss students that are having, frequent issues. And then a big part of it is also, trying to track and collect the data to see, when these things are occurring. So if you can identify how often they're occurring, when they're occurring, if you can do that, maybe you can get to the why and why they're occurring. Is there something that the student just doesn't prefer about a certain time of day or a certain activity or something, and maybe they're just trying to avoid it, because they're trying to avoid it, they're presenting with these behaviors and they're acting out. So I mean, that is a broad and expansive, practice and discussion that takes a lot of people, takes all the people that are working with an individual child to come together, come to that table, as you said, to discuss and try and see, okay, well, if this is what's occurring and this is when it's occurring and this is why we believe what's occurring, so okay, so what can we do to redirect them at that time? What can we do to prepare them for what may be upcoming, so then they're not as anxious or stressed about what's coming, and then they can better self-regulate and then hopefully, have more success. So a lot of times too, that comes before teaching, an academic lesson or skill. We need to get them to be able to cope and regulate in a learning environment in order to teach. Right. So that, I mean, that's a practice that I think educators in general need to remind ourselves. If a student doesn't have the skills to be able to be taught, then don't try. You can't just jump in and try and teach them right away. You got to teach them those skills first.
Right, absolutely. It makes me think about how when you're creating an IEP and how when you're looking at uh, the goals, and when you're setting those goals, it's important because I've sat in, been in these IEP meetings where it's like you have a goal there, but then it's not attainable because basically the data. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you have this goal there, and especially when it tends to be a repetitive goal, and it's like, okay, why is this student not meeting this goal? And when you dig there, you're like, okay, so if they can't do, you're saying they need to, let me see, be able to read or right, and then you have a goal that they don't even have the basic part. How are they going to get there? So we have to have these goals setting that's going to build them to what it is that we're wanting them to do. If we want them to learn to read on a, I don't know, they're currently on a first grade level, but you want them to read on a fifth grade level. It's that doesn't make sense. Where's their baseline? I guess that's where I'm getting at. You got to know the
Absolutely.
baseline. Where's the baseline of what can they do? And then, okay, then you can add and stretch it, and then continue and those building blocks. So yeah. Um, can you share with us any success stories of students who have made like significant progress um, while you have been the principal at your school?
Yeah. Latanya, I think I would love to be able to say that, all of our students that are with us have made some sort of progress in some way, right? A number of our students as well. I am happy to share they've come to us from not having success in other places, um, and then they come to us and they get to a point where they're thriving or they're lasting, with us longer than they did in a prior placement. um, and that success presents itself in different ways, right? So we have students who's, talking about behaviors have decreased, and now they're at a different point in their development where now they're working on those academic skills or functional skills. Now they're able to, you know dress themselves, hygiene, clean themselves, brush their teeth, things like that. These are all things that we work on. We have students that go from, you know, nonverbal or limited verbal to increasing their verbalization, right? So there's a staff person, God bless her heart, and she shared with me recently that we had a student who had, you know, 0 words, and he was up to between 25 and 30 words, right? So I mean, all of those are success stories. We have a recent student that started with us this summer, and again, I'm just so I use the word blessed. I do truly feel that we are blessed to be able to do that. We've been called to serve in this way. And we have these blessings where this young man came and visited our school a few months ago, and he was just in a place where he didn't feel safe. He didn't feel, I guess he was, the environment that he was in, he always felt defensive. He always had to defend himself against his peers and so forth. It was just a different school setting. And coming into our setting, he doesn't have those battles for power, right? So those power struggles among his other peers. And that alone, he has just thrived. I mean, he has just enjoyed, his first month with us. And I can only see that, just getting better as time goes along. So there are stories like that, throughout our school building. And that work right there, as you asked earlier, what is my role as the principal? Listen, I am happy and proud to be able to share these stories, but the testament and the accolades and all the all of that praise goes to the staff that work with the children. They are the ones that spend all the hours and time with the children. They are the ones that are performing these miracles. They are the ones that are truly creating the magic. Um, and again, Latanya, I could have another session if I pulled up my student roster. I could talk about student by student and just where they are compared to where they were. For us, to speak about the differences these children make from day one, where they entered our halls and they entered our building, to where they are at this time, or where they are when they either move on to their next placement, transition back into their home school, into their home district, or if they're with us through graduation. The difference that they present when they finish with us from where they started, that is the miracle in the work that we do.
Oh, wow. This is beautiful. I am just hearing what you're saying there. I am really hoping that that what you're saying, and I know that there are other as well, that are doing the work and doing great things out there, but I really hope that this gets to the masses, because what you're sharing, what you're saying, and I love what you said. A lot of times we're looking for the big, like like how can I say it, like the big thing of like, oh wow, progress. But you know what, a student that is, and and actually that little is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you say a student that maybe they couldn't use the bathroom on their own and now they're able to, that's huge. And the thing is, like you were saying, this is like ministry. I Hands up, definitely, because not only does that give dignity to the student, you're changing a family's life. Because just like our sister Shireen, who mentioned that her friend who had to do everything for her daughter, and
Mm-hmm.
the goal is that she doesn't have to do everything for her daughter because um, uh, there is I've seen amazing things where with the proper coach, help and I'm trying to think, therapy and just everyone working together, that these things are very possible. So so like a mom, Sister Shireen's friend, I don't know if she still knows what's going on or what that situation is, but um, there can be independence. There can be,
Mm-hmm.
to each one. We don't know how far that would go, but there can be improvement in any of these situations. And it makes me think about the scripture in the Bible where it says, do not despise small beginnings,
Mm.
because everything starts small and then it grows. And so so thank you for even mentioning that when I asked that question about any success stories, because they all got success stories.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter, if it's whatever here or it's there, it is a wow thing, to that family, to that individual. And so, yeah,
Certainly. And
yeah,
Latanya, I mean, to take a step back on what you had asked earlier too. So you asked about, how do we keep the staff motivated, considering the challenging work that we do,
yes,
and and similar to, like, kind of what you just said, right? And one of the someone in the audience had mentioned those baby steps, right? Those little steps.
Mhm.
So we always have to take a step back and remind ourselves at times, while this work is challenging and it's stressful,
Yeah,
as life just is in general, right? We just have to take a step back and remind ourselves, of the work that we are doing, why we're doing what we're doing. Right, a story that I often share with folks, often is, and I share with my staff. It's like those of us that are parents, right? Those of us that are parents, we see our children every day, right? So I'm not sure, Latanya, if you have any little ones, um, but those of us who are parents, right? We see our children every day, and we don't notice how they grow. However, then you see a family or friend member who may not have seen your children in a few months or a year or so, and then when they see them, they're like, "Wow, you've grown so much." And then we as parents, we look and we're like, we may not have noticed. So same thing with our staff and those of us that are practitioners. We see them every day. We may not notice the baby steps. We may not notice the small pieces of progress along the way, but it is happening. It's happening, and it may be small. And because it's small, it's hard for us to see because we see them every day. But think about those who don't see them every day and are getting the glimpse and can see the change, over the weeks, months, and years that pass.
absolutely, absolutely. Wow. That's so true. Um, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to ask. So I'm going to kind of combine these two questions together. Um, so how do you help engage the parents in this educational in this process, as
Mhm.
well as what role does the community play in supporting your school and its students?
All right. So, I mean, beginning with our parents and families, again, us calling us an alternative program, and just being different. One of the things that we want to do differently is we want to make sure that we have constant, ongoing communication and, a personal relationship with the with home and the families, the parents. Um, so our families, communicate with us and with their children's teacher and the classroom teams and their therapists on a regular basis, right? I mean, what one way that I think I would put it, and I share with my staff, as far as what, my expectation is as the school leader, as the principal. I share with them. I said, one of the worst things that I would want to hear is from any parent or family to share with me, say, you know what, I haven't heard from, right? I haven't heard from my child's teacher, or I haven't heard from this person, you know, on a regular basis. And I'm thankful, and I'm grateful, and I can share with all of my staff and all of you that that happens very infrequently because of what we practice, right? We truly believe and we work on connecting school and home, right? So through different modes, we meet our families where they're at. Some of our families don't have the technology capabilities. So you know what? We have the old black and white notebook or the notebook, and we're writing back and forth on a daily basis, emailing, or there's some apps and tech ways, right, whether through websites, or, as I said, the phone apps or whatever, to that we can communicate that way as well. So you have constant communication and access, discussing, how our students are doing on, almost a daily basis. Some of our families do that daily. Some of our families, their students are doing a little bit better, may have been with us with some time. They may reduce it. They may do it every couple of days. They may do it every week. But either way, that constant communication and connecting school and home. Similarly, I think every school and every community is different, right? So really encouraging school staffs and school leaders to find out what's local, find out what you have access to. And I know, as you said, you're in Wisconsin, I'm here in New Jersey. Our states are going to be different. Every state's different. Nationwide, that is different. So you got to find out what is available to you. I'm grateful again that we do have some wonderful partnerships with some local community organizations that support us. That support us very well, and there are organizations that basically sponsor activities at our school, throughout our school. They provide donations and financial support. We have a PTO, our parent teacher organization, with a strong contingent, a handful of families that participate with us in that way as well, and they help us facilitate activities throughout the school year as well. So it truly is a community. We're all in this together. Again, I'll use another cliche. It truly does take a village to raise a child, and it just so happens that for a special needs child, that village may just have to be a little bit larger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely it's a village that helps and even in particularly when you're dealing with a special needs situation. And I just so like with the community, like something here that they do that I think, and especially those who will be watching this video later, and when I even premiere it again, because I really want to get this video out there. Because whether you how I think businesses in a community can help is their establishment to be more kind of I want to say, well, accessibility. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
That could definitely help. And then having more inclusion for individuals, because one of the big things is that these students, especially let's say when they're in an alternative setting, as they're getting older and they're finishing up, the high school, educational part, but they're more into the in the self, skills, the other, type of focus. They need those opportunities to be able to get out into the environment, into society, to be able to exercise these things,
Mm-hmm.
because schools try their best to try to mimic what's inside the school and what they may have available and set up certain things, but they need to be able to take it out into the community. Like I know here at the gym that I used to work at, one of the teachers that I know very well, she was over the program in the transition department, and where she had students that were there who were learning how to do some custodial type of things. They were doing that. They were checking equipments that had some issues, documenting that. One student I remember when I went to check in, and it was something with my card, and I honestly I didn't know any difference between him or someone else, and so he was having a little issue, and so I was waiting patiently, and then and then Miss Edwards, she came up, and I was like, oh, okay, so I knew that he was one of her students, but it wasn't that he didn't, like he needed help like in that way, but it was just something that was kind of wonky going on with the sign in part. And so I was like, oh wow, this is really nice. So so these different places where these students can have that opportunity to be able to be integrated into into society and into these other places. And then what you don't understand, acts, like
Mm-hmm.
if a student becomes dysregulated and they're out in public or whatnot, and I think a lot of that too goes with parenting. Don't just stare, or point. You're the adult, and if you don't know or afraid to ask, at least tell your children don't do that. Some, don't
Mm-hmm.
just there's still a way of how you can just respond to an individual if there happens to be something like that is happening, like even at our local Walmart. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be taking up time with I'm just really passionate about this, where I don't know the greeter, but she has a service dog, and she's in a wheelchair, and you her speech is very let me see, it's very delayed, but she understands. And so I mean, for me, and what I do, just the fact that she is there, that tells me a lot about that Walmart,
Mhm.
and their support of different abilities. And then just for me, I mean, I understand, with some individuals, they have that delay response there. So I just try to be cognizant of that. If I'm not in a rush, I try to be like, okay, if I'm really going to kind of engage in her, I know there's going to be that delay. If I know I'm gotta kind of rush out, I just, say, have a good hi, and then I just kind of, so she doesn't have to feel like she has to respond, and so, but I understand because we have worked in ours working with individuals like we are,
Mhm.
so it may be a little different than the average person, but yeah, I think the community can play a big role in helping to provide opportunities for these different abled individuals. So
Absolutely, Latanya cannot agree more. Right, so to touch on the two things that you just added, right? Talk about the parenting and so forth. There's definitely still a stigma, right, about
yep,
special education and those with disabilities. We both touched on it earlier, and you touched on it earlier about, it's if you don't live it, it's a mystery to you,
yeah,
right? So then when you see others out in the community and in the public, if you don't have one, in your family or a close friend, if you're never exposed to it, it's different to you.
sure,
So we do things like this to bring things to the forefront, right? To
yeah,
educate others, just to build awareness, so that when you do see someone, with a disability, especially because it's not always a visible disability, so it's not going to be obvious to you. So just to have that awareness and understand, and then as we were talking too about, community members, local businesses, establishments, 100%, our students, our children, our young adults with disabilities need to at some point be able to get out and actually put to practice what it is they're learning, right?
right, right,
So any establishments out there, if you have an opportunity, local schools and programs that are working with people with disabilities, please collaborate, communicate, and just ask, you know, create those opportunities for these individuals to get out and come to your places. And you know what, do a shopping trip, make
yeah,
a purchase, you know do this job, right? And we do that. We have our transition program, and we have children our 16 to 21 population. They go out, and we have um wonderful collaborations, wonderful partnerships with local organizations that allow us to come in and do just that.
oh,
So nationwide, worldwide, let's do the same, please.
absolutely. That's so nice to hear because that's what I see here in Wisconsin, and they're steadily looking how they can improve on things. A lot of resources here for families and for individuals. I mean, actually it's overwhelming, and that's a good thing, because you have so many different uh, uh, opportunities and different things that is there, and they're still looking to even build. So that's good. That's good to hear that in other parts of the country that there is just amazing things happening, and hopefully
Absolutely.
this will get out to more, and other places will be inspired and see that this is working, and these individuals, as they get out and they're able to contribute, pay taxes, and other things, they see like, okay, that there is oh my gosh, that's a whole nother topic that we can go on. So I want to ask this, as I'm kind of, it's kind of, I mean, there's definitely going to need to be a part two to talk about other other things, and I would even like a segment where, like you said, you could go, I mean, I understand you couldn't names, but to go through these individuals that you said, you could just go through their lists and just talk about their progress. I would love to do something like that to bring encouragement to not only to parents, to also to others, to see like, wow, there's, it's just like the power of a testimony. It's like you can't dispute that, and a changed life. And so I would love to do a segment where we can talk about these success stories, and to celebrate these individuals and what's possible. So just a little blurb with that.
Well,
Uh,
Latonya, I
so
think we can. I think we can agree. I mean, considering everything that we're discussing, we're just scratching the surface. I
oh
mean,
gosh,
this alone can be a series on its own.
it sure can. It sure can. Absolutely. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you face as a principal, and how do you overcome them?
Well, Latanya, I think like anything, right? So, the two pieces in particular I'll probably share as biggest obstacles, and the first one I think is just a challenge. Again, talking about life, and it's time, right? So time is always an obstacle, where there's only so many hours in the day, and we all have busy lives. We all have responsibilities between work and our personal lives, right? So trying to balance that, and take care of ourselves. We have to remind ourselves of that. I often have to remind myself of this, as I encourage my staff, and I use a phrase, it was taught to me long ago, and I say, we really got to take care of ourselves, because if you cannot take care of yourself, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be very difficult to really take care of anyone else. Um, and I encourage that and share that with my staff all the time. And I have to take a step back and remind myself of that at times. If we don't keep ourselves mentally and physically well, we're not going to be our best selves. We're not going to be our best selves for others. So finding the time to do that and balance everything, is one. Um, Two, I think one of the challenges is just when you're working with others, and sometimes you just don't agree, right? Sometimes you just don't agree. You don't see things the same way. Um, but I do believe in a philosophy, again, that I was taught and introduced to a long time ago, that um, I believe that people in general are just inherently good. I believe in the inherent goodness of people, and that we all truly deep down only want to do what um, what we believe is to be truly good, and to be to the benefit of others, right? So we just may not agree on the how. So coming together and communicating and sharing, our philosophies and so forth on as to why we believe that we should be doing things a certain way, um, and coming to that, because sometimes that's just difficult. And as you said, when we're working with others, it's just going to be disagreement. There's going to be conflict, and just encouraging everyone that that's okay. It's okay. We don't always have to see everything, 100% aligned and eye to eye. But let's just come together and see how we can do this, because ultimately we're here for others. So we're here for our students, we're here for our children, and we're here for each other. Um, and I think that those two things, they go hand in hand. Just say, if we can live that way, not just work that way, then maybe things would be better in other areas as well.
Absolutely. There's a saying that you can't pour from an empty vessel.
Mm. Yes.
And you can't. And I think kind of something I know you probably have heard it, and Pastor Sean in the Create Your Economy, where he's like, it's so important that you have to put yourself up there. He even puts like family below. I
Faith.
think it's like
Yeah.
God, faith, and then yourself, and then family, and
Mhm.
or anything else, because without your faith, that's the fuel of everything, number one. And then secondly, yourself, as
Mhm.
much as you want to help others, a particular loved one, and it's not selfish, if you
Mhm.
don't fill yourself up, then how are you going to be effective to help others? And then also that's where you can end up, because you're empty, and then you're trying to help that person, and then you get agitated, irritable, oh, excuse me, and all the other, and it's just, and it's not good, then you end up, as some people say, bleeding on to other people, and that's just, not, it does a lot of damage. It can do a lot of damage. And wanted to something our sister said, as scripture says, you cannot pour new wine into old wines, wow, or else it will break. You have to be fresh and new in order to pour into others. Thank you, sis. I mean, wow, look at that. If you try to pour into new into old wine skins,
Mm,
it'll break. So what does that say about when we try to, we're not filled up in the right way or how we need to be, then we end up breaking on other people and on our loved ones, and etc. And that's just not good. A lot of people have done things out of, I say, an empty vessel, and some of these things can be very detrimental, you know, because
absolutely.
spare of a moment they did something, instead of like, I gotta put this down, I gotta step away or whatnot, and they kept pushing, and then they did something, and it ended up breaking that thing. And so, yeah, this is across the board for not just what we're talking about, but for many things,
It's
it's
just
just,
life. It's
it's just
life. How we live. Yes, and similarly as well. Um, I think we have to remind ourselves that we are only one. We are only one, and we are not meant to do anything in isolation. Right? We are a kingdom of communities.
yes,
We are we are built and bonded by groups, whether that be family, workplaces, anything, anywhere we are socially. We are greater in numbers, so we are greater together. Right?
right.
So we don't do anything in isolation. So doing that with others, and building on each other's strengths.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like, it's like a puzzle. If
Hmm.
you ever do puzzles, I used to do puzzles. Not that I don't like it. Maybe I need to get back to it. But every piece is so important. It's different, and yet it can't do without the other if you want to complete the picture. So it's like, we're all have our strengths. We all are very different, and yet how we fit together for this the big scheme of things. And you're right, we're not, it's very unwise to go as a lone ranger, very unwise. And so, absolutely. So, John, so this is kind of like getting towards the I guess the end of some questions. It's
Okay.
kind of like futuristic in a way, but and I'm going to combine these two together. So, what are your goals for the future of the school and the students that you serve, and how do you envision, let me see, I don't want to, so yeah, I think the second one kind of goes into that one. So what is your goals for the future of your school and the students, and just that you serve?
Yeah. Well, Latanya, I think having done this now for over 20 years, I want all of us, just not myself, everyone that I work with, anyone that's in the field, because of the work that we're doing and the population that we're serving. Um, I just hope that we continue to serve the special needs population. I do hope that publicly, um, we are just publicly communities, and our general population is more educated and better educated on the presence and capabilities of the special needs population, so that our children and young people, and when they become adults, they're able to you know integrate into our public and communities, and our society, a little more regularly. Right? So I want it to become more part of the norm, and not something other than that. Um, as a school and as an organization, I just want to be able to continue to do that for more students and families. one of the beautiful things that I love about education is, as I often share with individuals, is I love it. I love that when you're in a school. While this is it's often difficult because at some point we say goodbye to our students, right? Our students either graduate or they move on from us at some point. Okay. And those times are very emotional times for all of us because we truly build those relationships with these children and their families. However, a beautiful thing about education is while those students are moving on, there's always new faces to replace them. So that's a beautiful thing. You get to start all over and you get to build these new relationships with new children and new families. So there's always there's always an influx. You're always kind of replacing your inventory with new, fresh students, and you get to do this work, and that's a beautiful thing. Um, but again, like I would love to think that that our special needs population become part of our normal population and part of everyone else. Now, as far as the field, I think as we work in any field, right, there's always an evolution, right? There's always improvement in strategies and different technologies or practices and things that just evolve, things we didn't know before, things that we learn, right? So there may be medical advances that doctors and researchers are uncovering that haven't been found before. That then can be, that can educate us on something new for our population that we may be to do something a little bit differently. So continuing to evolve. There's another story about there was a speaker that I was introduced to years ago, early in my career. And this has stayed with me, and I share this as well. So when you think about education, for some reason, education in many ways remains stagnant and doesn't evolve as quickly as the rest of the world, right? Think about the cars that we drive and the technological advances in the cars that we drive, even 20, 50, 20 to 50 years ago, right? Think about the way that we listen to music, the devices that we use. Right now, everyone streams, right? All music is streamed. Everything is streamed, right? When was the last time you bought a CD, a cassette, right? So think about how that's evolved. Even though I know the vinyl records are coming back, everyone loves those. The vintage, everyone loves vintage. But the technologies, right? Um, things like that. How we travel, right? At one point, human beings could not fly, but now we can fly and we can get to the other side of the world, right? We can see other parts of the world. Everything evolves. However, if you look at a classroom, if you look at a photograph of a classroom from the 1950s, 1960s, even till today, you'll probably see some slight changes, right? You'll see maybe you'll see an interactive whiteboard as opposed to a chalkboard, but you still see desks. The seats are the same. The teachers up front, right? Students sitting in rows. Education hasn't evolved at the pace that the rest of the world has, and I think we need to ask ourselves why.
Wow. Wow. Ask ourselves why. That's a good question. And those who are watching, let's ask ourselves why. Why? Yeah, that's
A
mm,
similar statement, Latanya, something that I think I debate with practitioners, right? And you can share me if you ever hear this. Sometimes generationally, our generation, we kind of always question the next generation and how they do things and why they do things a certain way. And a lot of people say, well, that's not how I learned, or that's not how I did it, and I turned out okay, and things, statements like that. But I mean, we listen. We are not doing things. Listen, we have. I challenge people. I challenge people. I say, all right, if you feel that way, next time you get in your car, then next time do away with that power steering, right? Or if you're gonna watch TV, do away with that remote control, right? Do away with that refrigerator. Remember the old ice box? Things have evolved. So why in certain areas are we less accepting of the evolution or the changes and the progress?
right. I think a lot of it, and I still go back to this, that I think there could be more, but when you're not touched by it,
Mm,
and that's one thing. And because I think I don't know if you've I haven't looked too much into it, but did you know that Elon Musk was on the spectrum?
I have seen that. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know how much he has done in the community of that, but so I think that when and if he can do what he's doing for all these other things, it's
Mhm.
interesting, if what he I don't know. I mean, just a thought there, I don't know if he has a child that's on the spectrum too.
I
I
don't know. I don't know. I
I don't
don't know
know
too
that.
much about his personal life.
Okay, but I do know I did I came across something like that, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay." I did not know that. And is he using that to maybe make a difference as
Mhm.
well? But yeah, you're so right. Why haven't we evolved more in certain areas? And that's a really good question. Really good question. Um, it almost seems like the ending question I was going to ask is what has been the most rewarding aspect of your role as a principal, and what has motivated you and inspired you for 20 plus years. And it sounds like you've interweaved and said it throughout of how, but I don't want to assume. Um,
Well, yes,
so
Latanya. So it's a
I would like if you could with that as far as that this part of that the discussion of just um the rewarding aspect and just what has inspired and motivated you for 20 plus years. Wow.
so I mean the work in itself is tremendously rewarding, right? So just seeing the progress and changes that students make, on a daily, yearly basis. Building those personal relationships, with them as well. So the reward and the motivation, I think, kind of go hand in hand, right? I said a lot of things, throughout this session, but to talk about the reward and the motivation, how they go hand in hand, Latanya, is I truly believe and sense and feel and receive from these children that because they may think a little bit differently and they may just operate a little bit differently, that they truly love unconditionally. The fact that so much of the way that they see things is black and white, right? It's very binary. It's very they simplify things much better than we do. See, what we would consider, the rest of us who are neurotypical, we complicate things. We make things difficult. They simplify things and they see things very basic, and they will be very true to you. They will let you know if they like you. They will let you know if they don't like you. They will let you know if you are upsetting them because you are operating in a way that is just upsetting them. That they do not want or receive at that time. All right. Now, some of that may be, irrational. We're teaching them about that, but they will, if they love you and they care for you, they will let you know. And in a lot of ways, Latanya, I truly, they live their lives as Jesus did. They live their lives with love. And I truly believe that if we lived our lives truly that way, then our world overall could be a better place. And the way that they motivate me to be better in that way.
Wow. Absolutely. That's so encouraging. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Well, thank you, Latanya. Thank you.
I have now this is just it's a little well no. I want to now shift the topic to is there anything that you do outside of with the principal Like if you have, just in promoting yourself as well, like do you have a channel? Do you have a business or something you're doing also that that you would like sharing, that I would like the audience to know how they can support that as well. So yeah, if you can, if there's anything you would like to share in that way, please share with everyone.
Yeah, sure. Well, Latanya, I appreciate that. And while any other endeavors that I'm pursuing, I would say are in their early stages. So not quite a year ago, I did begin a my Instagram page, and it was my Mr. John here for you. It was a play on the word here, where I wanted to hear people's stories, especially pertaining to children and families with special needs, and hear their questions and be able to provide them with at least some deeper insight or answer some questions that they may have about about that. Additionally, I'm working on a book. So I am working on a book. So it's not complete, but when it is, I mean, by all means, I hope to remain in contact with you. Like I said, we can have some future discussions. I would love to update you on the progress of the book, and when the book is ready, I would love to share that with your audience and everyone out there, in the world and the special needs community. So those are some things that I'm working on right now.
Wow. All right. Well, that is absolutely, we're going to do that. Absolutely. Do you have a channel? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you
I
have
don't.
a
I
podcast?
don't.
You
No,
know,
I don't have a channel or podcast, but like I said, when we were having this conversation, I was like, this can be a series in and of itself. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to say a big thank you. Thank you so much.
well, Tanya, if I didn't see, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. Apologies, but was there a last question? There was something I think on the screen that
Yes,
popped
I
up.
had not. Yes, yes, we do. Yes.
Oh, there we go. I was asking about my book. Yes. No, that was actually talking about my book. So no, I've made some progress. It's not complete yet. I'd probably say I'm a few months away.
Okay. Oh, and we do have a question. We do have. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, I can. So, as a believer in Jesus Christ, how's my faith impacted me? As a principal in my interaction with students, parents. Yes, as a believer, I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, right? So, I do believe in people. I do believe in the inherent good of people. I believe in my calling to serve. I think through in many ways I've been put here to do exactly this, to do this work, and I do wear Jesus is with me at all times, and lifting me up. He's on my back, pushing me forward. He's beneath me, you know, carrying me through in my time of need as well. So anyone that I interact, Latanya, even this conversation with you, I just look at all of us as God's people, and I am here to serve. I'm just here to serve others because I do believe in serving others, and that then those blessings will be bestowed upon me and my family and others as well. Um, so I believe that. I believe in building God's house. Let's build God's house, and He will help build ours.
That's wow. That's. I like that question, Sister Shireen. I have a question.
Mhm.
So we are. Please, everyone. I kind of the shifting. Yeah. We're like, and if you have any questions, please leave them. I'm streaming from other platforms, so you can leave them as well in those comments and questions in those other platforms as well. So my question is, how has, especially being touched by this personally, how has it affected you as a person? And just whenever you're touched by something that can be um, I guess, kind of life altering in a way, and I'm not
Mhm.
saying in a bad way at all, but just how has um, yeah, how has it just in your life impacted?
Yes, in my faith.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so, Latanya, again, I think that, at times we feel, I mean, we all face trials and tribulations, right? So, oftentimes when we face those trials and tribulations, at times our faith gets, our faith gets questioned, or we question our faith,
Yeah.
right? And those are the times where, we need to remain strong and remind ourselves that, all things are possible through Jesus. All things are possible through Christ, right? So, we're not alone, and we're not the first to go through any trial or tribulation. We're not the first, and we certainly will not be the last. So reminding ourselves that that He is with us, right? And the Lord is putting others in our lives. He puts people in our lives when we need them, for what we need them for. So we need to remind ourselves, and we keep our eyes and our ears open to recognize God's presence at those times will help us get through our most troubling times. And what God has in store for us at the other end of those trials and tribulations is greater than what we can imagine, right? So we all want to live in the moment and enjoy the moment, but let's remind ourselves that when we are in that moment we are in the fire, all right, we will come out of that fire, and we will come out of that fire better and stronger than we were before.
Wow. Yes. A thought just and I would love even others and watching your thoughts on this too. But one of the things I was thinking about is that whatever has been allowed to happen in our lives, it's, I mean, here is only temporary.
Mm.
So it's like a temporary situation for what's going to be real and eternal, after this life. So it's like whatever is allowed to happen, whatever does happen, that is like, okay, God, especially as a believer, what you know how to use whatever has occurred or happened, for the glory, the bigger purpose, for him, for bringing glory to him, to how people can come to Christ through the situation, just looking at all of it instead of just looking at, oh my gosh, why me, why did this
Mhm.
happen to me. And I'm not saying, because I think we all, maybe to some degree, in the initial stage of certain things, it's, you may have that, like, my gosh, like, but I don't know, the person that comes to my mind is Job. When
Mm.
all that happened with Job, one day he just has it all, and then in one day he lost it all.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we ever read of anybody ever in the Bible going through something that was that
Tragic.
intense. Yeah, I mean, that was beyond, because it hit all the areas that can derail a person. Your family, which included his children, his finances, which was his, ability to care for himself and his family, and the health. Those are three areas that, if they're hit in some kind of way, it can really derail a person. And in those three areas, now that I think about it, interesting, it also um, can come in competition with God, and more so mammon and God, where God, in the Bible, where it says you cannot serve, it actually says money can be a master. You cannot serve two masters,
Mm.
God and mammon, and how in those areas, if they're hit, it can really um it can really show some things about
Absolutely.
you. Those three areas that I hadn't really thought that deep in that way about it, but yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
um,
certainly. I mean, certainly. I mean, along those same lines, right? So when we are as we say, when we are challenged, it's all about how we respond, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, the Book of Job is one that I read through, and I find a resemblance to Elihu in the Book of Job, where Elihu was the one who spoke up against the elders, right? So, Job questioned his faith at that time,
Did.
as many of us do,
Yeah.
and that's a challenge.
Yeah.
That is a challenge. I had recently listened to a minister, and he was telling a story about you know God will show you the end, right? So what God has in store for us at the end is beautiful, and if we put our trust and faith in the Lord, you know what for us to achieve that end, that's what He has in store for us. What God will not show us is He won't show us how to get there, because
Oh,
if He showed us how to get there, all of the hard things that we have to do to get there, more often than not, most of us are going to give up and we're going to quit. We're going to say, we can't do that. We can't do that to get to the end, right? Because it's hard. It's all the hard things that we have to be disciplined enough to do in order to see our end, right? That's why I talk about keeping our eyes open and our eyes and ears open so that we can see and act upon all of the things that God puts in place for us to get to our end.
wow. So can you say that little part again? That God show I want to make sure I'm quoting you correctly
God
because
will God will show us the end.
God will show us the end.
Yes, He will not show us how to get there.
He will not show you how to get there. I'm gonna type this into. I really like that. God will show you the end, but He will not show you the process. Is that what that's what you said?
Yes, the process and the plan.
The process, okay, or okay. Wow. The process or the plan. That is powerful because if we knew all the middle stuff, you're right. I don't even think we could handle it. Even
Hmm.
if we're like, he's like, but you're going to get there.
Hmm.
We would still be like, oh God, oh, I just, wow. I'm thinking about like in, uh, like the Israelites, when that I don't know that one popped up in my head, how God led them purposely. It was purposely that they were led to that impossible situation, because see, God knew what He was going to do. He was going to eradicate, their enemy, and show this most wonderful work, to His people. But all they could see is water, impossible, death. That's what they saw.
Hmm.
And so wow. And even like with Job, I mean, no, he did not curse God and die. But we know that he was not going to do that, because God had already, what He had said about it. And but Job did show, um, he was human.
Hmm.
Even though, even I'm like, wow, just that part, that's all and I don't mean to say, oh, that's all he did, but I'm like, most of us with one of those situations, it would probably, derail a person,
Absolutely.
one of them. And so and same way, yes, with Abraham, he was another one of those, um told to get up and go to yep, that's another one. Yes. And when God told him to go and to sacrifice his only son, to add to that, I mean, absolutely. He didn't know that God was going to intervene and have, a lamb there to take its place for, so that is just, this is really, let's see, our sister, I would have fallen flat on my face if they were me. You're not alone, sis. I mean, a lot of us, but that's the thing. That's why I always say, I don't know. I'm taking this journey is one step at a time. I don't know. All I can say is
Mhm.
at the moment, I'm believing. At the moment, at this present moment, we are believing. And I don't know what tomorrow will hold. I don't know what the next second minute, but I pray and hope that whatever comes, that I'm rooted enough in the Lord, and that I'm like, that He will help me, and of whatever may come our way. And that's just what we can, you know, I want to make it to the end. I want to
Mhm.
get through every, obstacle and everything, that is my heart desire. And so, and that's just how I approach things. So wow, that is so. Thank you, Sister Shireen, for that. Thank you for your question. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions. In the comment, I'm wanting to look. I don't see any. And then I'm looking on all the different. I don't see any. Okay, so um, definitely, John. I no more questions, sis. Okay, thank you. I want to say once again, thank you for coming and sharing with everyone that is here, those who will see later, and it's just clear to me that your school is very blessed. The people there, of how it seems of a place of hope, and just opportunities for all students, and then just the compassion that you have, for not only the students but for the staff there as well. And it's it is such, um what you've described, that it would, my hope is that people who are listening, and yet, to their population of how they would do things, but they will see what can be. And I tell you, all people, no matter what their abilities are precious in God's sight. And even more so, for those who are in a position at where they have something like that that's going.
Mhm.
This is truly a ministry. It is helping those individuals that are what some would say the least of them. And we know, we even hear that language in the Bible, as well. And so, it's just something to really think about. And but yet, to not just look at, I mean, just maybe another way of looking at, like, every day I'm doing ministry. I'm doing, you as a principal, and what you're doing, and the morale of the people that you are over, and like you're the head, and so it trickles down, from the head on down, and setting the environment, and all that you have shared. And so, and I know there's so much more to share, and like my sister said, yes, please do a part two, three, four, a series. So absolutely, absolutely. And yes, may the Lord continue to please the work of your hands, John, which the Lord sees comes from the heart of the flesh that He has given to you. Continue to be the light of Christ that shines brightly.
Amen. In Jesus' name. Thank
In
you, sister.
Jesus' name. Thank you, sis, for that prayer. Amen. And this to all those who serve in that capacity. Be encouraged. The Lord, He sees. And you are doing a great work for Him. Oh, you meant to say, oh, she said, sorry, I meant to say bless. No problem. Um,
We understood.
Understood. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, So, John, do you have any lasting remarks to everyone before we? I want to say, I know we got started late, and I want to be respectful of your time and of your Saturday with family, and do you have any closing remarks that you would like to say before we end?
I know, well, Latanya, I just want to thank you again. I want to thank you again for having me. I mean, I think this conversation has been enlightening. It's been enjoyable. I've enjoyed this time, on your platform here with you. Just anyone out there who is listening, if there's, if you have any questions, so look forward to doing this again. Join us again. Let's answer your questions. Let's see what our topics are. I just, by all means, please, I just pray each and every day for all of God's beings, all of God's kingdom. I pray for each and every one of you, whatever breakthroughs you may need, financial healing, personal breakthroughs that anyone need, may God bring those to you. Let's be kind to each other. Let's love one another and live as Jesus has. And we just pray for all things, as I said, once again, in Jesus' name. Amen, everyone. I thank you.
Amen. Amen. Well, with that being said, thank you, Shireen, for moderating, for holding it down. Thank you so much. As always, you're such a encouragement and just of a support. I also always like to mention our sister. She has her channel at the heart of the conversation as well. And so check out her channel also. Yes, and you are welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your contribution. So so John, with that, I have I this is, I don't want to say like this is it, but until next time,
See you soon.
um absolutely enjoy your day and thank you so much for
Thank you as
joining.
well, Latanya. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.